Ciao, hello. My name's Emma Cochrane. I am very pleased to be here. I represent Accenture Song, and I think you maybe have heard from a few of my colleagues today, and I'm maybe going to hear from a few more, but I have the honor of representing our Metaverse group, and I'm the global lead of our Metaverse studios for Accenture Song. So very pleased to meet here. Apologies, I don't speak Italian, but hopefully you can understand me anyway. So what I wanted to chat to you about today was about how we can create ethical experiences this time. So we all have been living through some of the dangers of Web 2. We've been talking about Web 3. People are saying the word metaverse a lot, but what is that actually going to mean when it comes true, or if it comes true? And how can we think about kindness and how we can be better with people when we create all of these experiences this time? So a little bit about me and the Metaverse Continuum Business Group. I'm from New Zealand. I've been at Accenture for about 8 years, and I have spent my entire career thinking about the human experience and what that means for business and vice versa. I spend a lot of my time talking to clients about why a better experience for a person, be that an employee or a customer or a stakeholder or themselves, is going to have a good impact on their business, and why changing their companies to be more human-centric and more life-centric is part of how we strengthen the economy, strengthen our companies, and how companies actually move into the future. So when the opportunity to work in the Metaverse Continuum group came up, I was like, what is, I don't know, like, you know, it just seems like a buzzword. But the more I got into it and the more I started to understand the potential that the metaverse actually has for people and for technology, I started to get really excited about it. So we actually have named our group the Metaverse Continuum Business Group because we believe that there will be no end state. There is no end to the internet, and the metaverse is not a single destination and will not happen at one particular moment in time. It will evolve, it will continue, it'll grow, it'll change, it'll be called something else. And we're preparing ourselves and our clients to go on that journey. So we have about 820 kind of metaverse things that we've done over the last few years. We have thousands in the pipeline and lots coming. We have about 125 global content studios, and I run a global virtual studio as well, which is very pretty in the virtual world, but also very material in terms of the number of people committed to creating these amazing experiences. So just to think about what the metaverse actually is, I can kind of see, but in a show of hands here, who's like skeptical that the metaverse will ever actually happen? 1, 2, that's not many. Usually when I ask that question, it's at least half of the audience, but you guys seem to be pretty advanced, so that's good. Yeah, so the internet, we've all been living through it this whole time, but the evolution of the internet of data, where all of the data in the whole world was available to 400 million people or more in the 1990s, that really changed like how we share information, how we learn, how we communicate with each other. And in the 2000s, when the social connection started to happen and distances became eliminated through social media and through communication and how people connect with each other, that really changed how we shared that information and how we actually engage with people online. There's a lot of bad things about social media that we have designed into the system to keep people paying attention and to keep that data in front of them, and it's not always a positive thing, and we're aware of that. So as we think about the evolution and where we're going, it's really important for us to think about designing that out of the next set of experiences. So the Internet of Things is, I'm sure everyone's got a device in their home that talks to them, or that they try to talk to at least, and it tries to talk back to you. I use mine as a cooking timer mostly. But the Internet of Things was meant to eliminate that hassle of like having to make a lot of effort. And it should be putting the onus on the machine and not the onus on the person. And it was a big kind of stride towards alleviating the pressure and the pressure of the onus of work from the person and onto the thing. And it is kind of working. I actually took a ride in a autonomous vehicle for my first time in San Francisco a few weeks ago. No driver, just the car driving around San Francisco. Terrifying, 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 but amazing. And, you know, pulling up next to another autonomous vehicle at the lights and seeing another one next to us was just like, I'm a bad driver, so it was quite exciting. But it was also shocking as well. And so we think about the Internet of Things. It's what the effort was to try to make things easier for humans. Brands try to make things easier for humans by bombarding us with messages that they think that we want. And they try to do that by learning as much about us and gathering as much data as they can. So when we get to where we are now, what we think of the metaverse as an internet of place, the internet that you can kind of go to and be inside of and experience, whether that's in 2D or 3D or virtual or AR or physical, whatever. It's the internet that is all around, and the internet of ownership. So if we think about traceability and what blockchain actually represents in terms of open trust and a public ledger that everybody can see, we can trace ownership without looking for the bad actors and punishing them. We can make ownership clear from the very beginning without any doubt. So when you take both place and ownership and put it together, that's what we think of as the opportunity for the metaverse. So what is the metaverse? We have a definition. You can have your own definition. There's no one definition that is accurate. But at Accenture Song, we think of the internet as, we think of the metaverse as an evolution of the internet. It's just more internet. It's just the next internet. It's nothing to be scared of. Just like the internet before the browser didn't make any sense, it doesn't make much sense right now either. But it's going to enable us to move beyond browsing and looking to participating. So there's a big push for community. There's a big push for ownership of your own experience and your own data to be given back to the consumer. And it's the concept of participating or inhabiting persistent shared experiences that span the real world to the virtual and everywhere in between. You are all already experiencing the metaverse. You have all probably held up your phone, like some of you guys are holding up now, to see an AR thing. If you played Pokemon Go, that's the metaverse. If you've ever played a game, that's the metaverse. So it's everything, but it is not just gaming. It is not just headsets. It's not just devices, and it's not here yet. It is a future state that we are talking about. And I know there are big companies out there who've been in the press lately, who are building devices and wanting to be the home of the metaverse, and some of it will happen there and the rest of it will not. No one will own the metaverse, that's the point. It won't always be for multiple users either, it won't always be for community, it can be for you as an individual. In fact, right now it's mostly you as an individual. This is some of our things that we've done in the metaverse. At Accenture, we actually onboard all of our employees in a virtual onboarding office, which makes all of our, we have about 130,000 people who have onboarded this year, new employees of Accenture, and they globally used to have to fly to this one place just outside of Chicago, where we would get them all together for a week and they would like hang out with each other. So if you had started in Milan or if you started in Auckland, New Zealand, everybody flew to Chicago. COVID made that not possible. And so we created a virtual university that everybody goes to in virtual reality, and they can go there whenever they want. They meet up with their friends that they made at the onboarding, and we call it the nth floor. We've done a lot of these other things, holorides, blah, blah, blah. I won't bore you with all of that. So is it a big deal? It is already a big deal. 180 million spent revenue, that means purchases made in the metaverse. In only 2 years, that is going to more than quadruple to 800 billion. There are a lot of people trying to buy ads in the metaverse. That is 5% of what the total potential revenue could be. It's not just a media channel. It shouldn't just be a media channel. It is an opportunity for brand new economies, brand new forms of revenue to be created, net new services that don't exist in the real world right now. And I have the honor at Accenture of trying to help my clients find out what exactly their new products, their new services, their new businesses, and maybe even their new brands are going to be. We're working with a candy company right now. You can't eat candy in virtual reality. Does that matter? I don't know. Will they always be a candy company? Probably not. But we're helping them figure out like what their paths forward are. They have an audience, and their audience is engaged in the metaverse. So 13 trillion by 2030, it could be much more than that. These are conservative estimates for now. But if you're a business that is not thinking about how the metaverse impacts each piece of what you're doing, then you're probably going to miss out, and you're probably going to delay your learning. So when I talk about value in the metaverse, there's several types of value. There's obviously tangible value, which most businesses are like, okay, how much money am I going to make? What's my P&L going to look like? How much more efficient can I make my business? There's all those types of values. So we think about everything in Web3 as inclusive of the word metaverse. We are helping so many companies think about how to use blockchain to optimize their operations, to create digital twins of their operating factories or their supply chains, and find massive efficiencies in what they're doing. That makes sense, right? Improving how your business runs right now. Then there's an incremental metaverse goods and services. I tried out a virtual therapist the other day. Not my real therapist, but a virtual one just for work because they asked me to. And it was interesting interacting with this purely AI human and the empathy that AI was actually able to show. And I was talking to them, to the creators afterwards, and I was like, are people really honest, like with a virtual human? Like, are these services that we think that we're going to provide, do they mean anything to the people who are experiencing them? And they were like, oh, actually, it's interesting because what we found is, for someone who's seen a human physical therapist, an avatar of a real person, or a virtual, completely AI, non-human-based therapist, they are most honest with the AI. They are most open, least guarded, and most vulnerable with the AI because there is elimination of judgment. There is absolutely no, it's understood that there is no judgment. Of course, who reads the data afterwards? That's what we have to be very careful about and very transparent about. So these metaverse goods and services, the payments and the commerce, we'll be able to buy ads, we'll be able to buy things, we'll be able to buy coins, trade with each other. And there's an economy that is happening between consumers that will outgrow the economy between businesses and consumers. So B2C, C2C is what the metaverse is about. So that's all tangible stuff, and we have to think about this, right? Businesses need to make money. But the intangible value is the other very strong reason to participate in this space and to be testing and experimenting in what we're doing. So you don't have to make money immediately. Are you going into this space to connect with your audience, to grow a new audience base, to figure out, what the next generation of your audience is into, what they're figuring out? Are you using it to build trust? Are you using it to put the power back into your audience hands? These are the conversations that we're having with our clients, and I'm championing as much as I can, because driving an engagement with your brand can take many, many, many different forms. And the metaverse is the first opportunity that businesses have had outside of the physical interaction, back to the mom and pop retail stores. This is our chance to create one-on-one interactions between a consumer and a brand and have them be meaningful. And the way that we do that is we have to design kindness and ethics and responsibility into the experiences that the brands are providing. But those intangible value moments are incredibly valuable for the overall lifetime of a company and the overall lifetime of a relationship between a consumer and a company. So it's important things to think about. So when we imagine the future of the metaverse, we like to imagine that it's going to create economic opportunity and financial inclusion for many, many, many communities who don't have it right now. Now, on one hand, forcing the internet on certain populations can be, forced globalization and very unethical. On the other hand, introducing communities and people to economic opportunities that they don't have right now because they can earn, trade, and participate in an economy completely virtually could have a massive impact on the world. Empowering users to have control over their own data. In the very near future, each one of you will have a wallet that controls your data that you decide which company you show it to. The companies probably will continue to try to collect data on you, but more and more, the most valuable data that a consumer can share with a company is the one that they voluntarily share. So when I am shopping, I am happy to share my size, my preferences, the events that I have coming up, my budget, maybe above my budget, and a few of the things that I've bought before so that they can get better recommendations. I'm not willing to share my medical information, my home address, my physical characteristics beyond size, et cetera, and that choice should be up to me. That should be fine with the brand as long as they're able to read the data that is being shared with them to create a positive experience. We want the metaverse to promote inclusion, diversity, equity, and it's an interesting challenge when you think about people representing themselves as avatars. Are they really representing their real selves? Like, you can change your appearance as an avatar every day, every minute, on every different platform you can be something else. But that doesn't really matter in terms of like what is true and what is not, because just like what is happening culturally all over the world, who you choose to be and who you want to represent yourself as should be how a brand interacts with you. And if I want to be known as, a very tall male basketball player, and I want the brand to interact with me like that, what's wrong with that? There's a dark side to that where you're misrepresenting who you are in an exchange and no one's really monitoring the space anymore, so we have to be very, very careful. But your identity that you represent through an avatar or through virtual reality, brands will need to be very careful about how they read that, how they interact with people through it, and how they think about what's the most inclusive experience that they can provide. We'll enhance the value chain through sustainability and transparency. There's, the opportunity on blockchain to be transparent, to build trust is immense. And we're going to augment how we learn, how we work, how we plan, how we live. At Accenture, my first interactions in some of this space were because of work and through work, but more and more that's going to happen in education and play and entertainment and everything. It will permeate, just like the internet does, it will permeate all aspects of your life. Now, the internet is a dangerous place already, and what are we going to do to make it less dangerous? There is cyberbullying happening. I think, Gen Z spends over 9 hours a day online on average. Over 50% have experienced cyberbullying. That is a huge amount. That is a lot of bad behavior. Avatar rights and personhood, online safety, virtual identity, there are very complex topics in here that we have to be very careful about when we think about growing audiences and designing experiences that engage these audiences. We have a responsibility to do that in a way that isn't creating harm. This metaverse space is completely deregulated right now. There is no and will not be any one governing body. There will not be rules and laws that everybody adheres to. As much as we've tried to implement them for Web 2.0, it won't exist. So the onus is on the companies and the people participating in the metaverse to act in a responsible way. So we think about value models, collaboration, transparency, and mutual respect. This is a swell of human need as well. All humans, post-COVID, pre-COVID actually, have a burning desire for transparency and trust, and for there to be clarity in who they're interacting with, especially when they interact with a brand. This is one of our Accenture song trends, but humans crave transparency. Like, I don't mind if you take my data, if you tell me what you're doing with it. That is now the new standard for consumer data collection. There's many different value models. But what we know is that providing trust, providing clarity, providing transparency, that is a form of kindness that is very easy for brands to create. We use our Metaverse responsibility framework at Accenture to think about two sides of what is responsible. So the trust dimensions about privacy and data and how secure that is, the resiliency of the platforms that this data actually sits on, are they safe, can they be hacked, the security of how you're participating in this and like who has access, who can read, who can act upon it, and IPR protection. So whose IP are you using? What is happening to that IP? I argue with my responsible metaverse friends a little bit that you can't protect all IP in the metaverse if you're really going to consider a creator economy that takes IP, amends it, and then someone who is incentivized for it. So we have to rethink about how IP works. Nike has created a bunch of digital products that are able to be traded. So you can buy it, like I can buy a pair of shoes and sell it on a secondary marketplace. The Nike digital products that are being sold on marketplaces right now, they actually have a 10% commission built in that goes back to Nike every time it is sold. Not possible with real physical shoes. And so for the amount of revenue that Nike has made on that product, 50% of it has come from residuals on the resale. 50%. That is huge. As we think about who can adapt our IP, who can touch it, who can be monetized for it, that's where it gets really complicated, but it gets really exciting when you think about the consumer economy. The human dimensions of responsibility are the most important, though. How do we facilitate safe interactions? How do we drive sustainable use and solutions? There is a massive amount of energy required for this. That is not necessarily sustainable right now. We have to make sure that that's being designed into the system. We need to center around employee, but also human well-being. We need to design addiction out of the algorithm. The infinite scroll, the stay online a little bit longer, we have to design that out to be responsible. And we have to foster inclusion, diversity, and accessibility. This can't just be for the few, it must be for the many. There is a lot of good happening in the metaverse. It's not all doom and gloom, don't worry, although I did talk about a few of the bad things. The Gen Z is getting so into this. They are going to be the generation that benefits the most from this. They're making money, they're making friends, they are having equitable relationships that are as important to them as their real life relationships. There's a lot of non-profit work happening. We actually helped create an experience called Favela X, which helped children understand what it was like to grow up in the slums, even though they didn't, and have empathy for each other. We've created empathetic training videos for social workers who have to go into a home and decide whether to remove a child. That is a very difficult thing to do, and we've created a virtual reality experience so that they can practice that in a safe environment without getting in front of potentially dangerous people to do that. There's lots of good stuff, but the new value models need to include kindness, they need to include responsibility, and they need to think about the human at the center of this. Humans build technology. Technology doesn't build humans. We are all humans, and we all need to participate in this space, thinking about the value that we can create for other people and for ourselves. And it is a huge responsibility that we're all going to have. This is not going to be on the businesses, it's going to be on the businesses and the consumers. The metaverse will reflect its architects. We are all going to be the architects of this space, and we need to seek to elevate diverse perspectives and to act responsibly because we have a huge amount of pressure on our shoulders. So, thank you. I will leave you with that. I really appreciate the time, and I hope you are all as excited about the opportunity that the Metaverse presents as much as I am. Thank you.